So, before I continue, I will show you how you can make your Maya a bit more readable if you're viewing impaired or it's really tiny in the series. So you can go to Windows, Setting Preferences, and in interface you can put your Maya at a custom scaling. I put it on 200 so everything is big enough. This will also take into account how big your monitor is. So for example, I work on 150 because I have a 4K monitor. So it depends on what monitor you have, so you can try some stuff out and then you hit save and then you will have to restart Maya before it will take action. Then in display you can change the line width of, for example, these controllers. I will put this to 2, maybe 3, so now everything should be really clear and should be visible in the series as well. So these are just some tips to work if you have a little bit problems with your eyes or something, so everyone can follow along safely. So let's save. So our 12 principles. These are the 12 principles of animation. So I will go over all of them in a different order, but it's just so you can maybe write them down or take some notes. I will, for each time, I will bring up a principle. I will give you a small definition of what it actually is. But well, here you can write them down, and then we can go into really exploring them and give you a visualization of what these principles mean. So actually I can maybe put this in the bottom corner right here. So the first one I want to have a look at is timing. I think timing is maybe, I think one of the most important ones in animation, since timing is what's going to sell your character, the weight, the rhythm. It's about physical timing, but also theatrical timing. So let's look at some timing examples. I will just close this for now. So with timing we're thinking about speed, but you also have theatrical timing, like to get the funny joke across. But let's now just look at the regular timing and how we view it. For example, this one is moving from left to right the entire time. So let's play this. Right, left, right, left, right, left. So this is just basic timing, right? So you can have that our animation is pretty slow. So as you can see, it's a lot less attractive because it's moving a bit slow. There's also no context, but this is something you have to take into account, and I'm showing you this because a lot of beginners make their animation really slow, making it feel floaty. Floaty means that the character feels to be floating away in its pose because there's too much time between the keys. So here you can see clearly for this one, between 1 and 20 it goes from left to right, so there's 19 frames in between. But then for this one it's 35 and you can already feel it being very slow. Then we can have more of a rhythmic timing, as you can see right here. You can really see it's having some kind of rhythm going from left to right and already gives some more character to our ball. this is how the movement curve actually looks like. So we can really see in the beginning, for example, it's going really slow, and then it's speeding up super fast and then slowing down again and doing the same movement in the other direction. So as you can see right here, slow, slow, fast. And then we have just the fast rhythm. So it's also important that your animation is not so fast that you can barely see what's going on, and for your eyes, for me it's almost feeling like there's 2 or 3 balls moving from left to right super fast. So it's important to take into account these speeds and what you want to bring forward to the viewer of what they need to feel. But it's just take into account that you cannot go too slow or too fast, and try to give everything some rhythm. So next up in the list of principles is squash and stretch. So squash and stretch gives the illusion of weight and volume of a character when it moves. So let's look at some examples right here. So this is a bouncing ball. Sorry, let me just quickly and then off. Okay, so now we can only watch to this ball. So these are the controllers which I've just hidden for now, so we can focus on the ball animation. So this is a bouncing ball, boink, boink, boink. As you can see, there is no squash and stretch, it's just the ball with the same volume going up and down the entire time. But this already has some timing differences and some rhythm. As you can see, this is our up and down movement. It's going fast down and it's very sharp here. That's because gravity, right? Things slow down because they're trying to fight gravity, and at this point they lost in the fight, and then they're going down and speeding up until they touch the ground, and the same thing happens over and over again. So now, to give it more character and weight and volume and make it a bit more interesting, we can add squash and stretch. Maybe I can move this a bit to the left so it's easier to watch. So now we can see the difference between the two, right? So now we have a ball who squashes and stretches. It feels more alive. There's more character to it. So yeah, and there's something nice that we can show as well in this case, and it's secondary action. So secondary action is also one of the principles. Secondary action helps to give your character even more character or emphasize movement. So let's give our ball a head, and now we can see a head flying with our ball. So this is a secondary action for the ball. It's also carrying a head, and the head is doing some animation after the ball is falling and stuff. So there's some secondary animation going on right here. So this is 2 principles in one. It's squash and stretch and secondary action. And if you really look at the curves and the timing, then you can say it's timing as well. Next up, we have overlapping action and follow through. So here we have a ball, just like we have been using the entire time. And this one will have an overlapping and follow through action. So let's see. By 50, okay. So it's a good showing off of the overlapping action and follow through. So we have our action going to the right, and this makes our ball stretch. So there's an overlapping animation. It's the animation of the controller going to the left, which is dragging, and then our ball suddenly stops moving right here on frame 20, and the energy of the ball is going into the ball and then out again, and it's going to wobble until it's completely static again. So this is what we call the follow through. So our biggest motion stopped and other stuff is reacting to this quick stop. Like in science, there's a saying that all objects that are moving want to keep moving, and so here the top part of the ball wants to keep moving, so it's showing off some reaction to the quick stop of the base of the ball. So that's a quick showing of this principle of follow through and overlapping action. This one. Next one is slow in and slow out. This can be visualized perfectly by the ghosting tool in Maya. Slowing in and slowing out is because everything in life has some kind of accelerating movement. It's like, for example, a car. You can't go from 0 to 100 without starting off slowly and increasing speed. You don't go 0 to 100 in 1 millisecond. It's impossible. So it's easing in. And it's the same thing when you're pushing your brake in the car. You don't stop from 100 to 0 suddenly. It's easing out. It's from 100 then to 80, 50, and then all the way to 0. Here is a good showing off of the principle. So on top we have one linear action. You can see here the x is one linear till 20, so till it reaches the end, and then going back. And the other one is a curved, so it's easing in and easing out. So if you look at the ghosting, I can play it right here. If you ever want to ghost something, you can just click the geometry and then go to visualize and go select it. Or you can go into the ghosting editor and you can create your own settings of how you want things to be ghosted. For example, I can do 10 seconds, or you can do every frame step. That's a bit much probably for the system. So here we can see our ghosting in action. So with the setting, you can go to custom. We can see both sides, so left, right, and then every frame, and we can see 10 images. So here we can see clearly that our top one, the distance between each ghosted ball is equal, it's linear. But it's not the same here at our ease in and ease out, or slow in, slow out ball. As you can see, if we center it right here, there are a lot more drawings in the beginning and at the end, since it's slowing down, and where it's really fast, or starting slow and slowing down. And when things are really fast, there is a lot more space in between the drawings. It's something you need to take into account, that almost everything is an ease in, ease out, except for example a robot, which is a linear movement a lot of times. Or when things undergo gravity, like the bouncing ball that I showed previously, it was really linear movement going down, but it was actually spinning up. But the graph was a linear going down. So by the end, it would be bigger movements. Okay, so next up is pose to pose, straight ahead, anticipation, arcs, everything a bit at once. And we can do it with our nice rig and Autodesk character Michaeli from Michaeli's Mission. And she will show you a bit about the principle. So what we're going over is straight ahead and pose to pose. So this one we will do anticipation, then talk a bit about arcs, solid drawing, and staging. So all at once. So the first one is pose to pose. This is pose to pose. So you plan out your animation. So we want Michaeli to jump right here, so she doesn't fall to the ground. So we plan out like this. So you start keying everything. Plan out, okay, she starts here, then around here she would be in the air, and then she would land. That's something that's pretty clear. And then you will start filling in those things. And I already made one filling, two fillings even. So we knew we want to end here, and here we were in the air, and here we were starting. So we are adding breakdowns, and this is one of those breakdowns. It's actually still, for me, a key pose, since it's the first time she's touching the ground again. But this is how you would animate. You would plan out with basic positions, and you would add stuff like this. You can do the same thing on the beginning side, but there's something we need before we start jumping. Now it's a bit strange, like suddenly she decides to jump and there's no indication she was going to do it. So we need an extra pose, which is called an anticipation pose, and which is also a principle. So we can add a pose like this right here. So now this is a pose where we feel like she's going to jump, right? Let me only show the polygons. Now you can see she clearly is ready to jump, so she is standing straight, then going down, ready for the jump. And now we already have a bit more poses in our animation. As you can see, this is very blocked out since I'm working in stepped mode. Step mode is something that looks like this. Everything is linear, right? So if you're animating, you have a lot of options in the graph editor, and now it's on step mode, but you can just do automatic as well. And now Maya will start filling the entire movement, as you can see right here. But since we are working on planning the animation and adding and breakdowns and still working in it, just about posing, it's better, or at least a lot of people like to work in the step mode, since this gives you a better look on what you're working. Otherwise, two things can happen. You already think it looks really great, and you just go over your animation and be like, wow, everything is moving, looks so great, and you lose track of what's actually showing. Like this looks really weird, right? So you would add a breakdown right here. Same thing here, like the feet does not even tilt. So it's better, I think, at least everyone's own has its own opinion, to work in step mode in the beginning of your animation, so you know when things are missing. For example, here we miss the feet lifting and stepping back, and we miss a pose where she still touches the ground with the tip of her feet, and then she's the air, and I need to move in the air as well. So, well, that's a bit of the basics of working pose to pose. This will be used as well later in the series as well. So, And then we have something else called the working straight ahead. This is more for 2D effects or people who work in 2D who are really drawing every frame and then try to find their paths along the way. So there is no planning in this. Oh, forgot to visualize. So there's another way of working, which is straight ahead. And this is something that 2D animators use a lot. That's how it was done in the very beginning. You would draw something, go to the next frame, draw something again, draw something again. Now I've drawn this on trees. So every third frame there is another drawing. I'm not the best drawer or anything. It's just me want to show you what you can do with this. And so there's going to be a lot of effects that can be used with this way of working, since, for example, fire is pretty unpredictable and there is not really like some kind of shape it has to go towards to, so you can draw pretty straight ahead. There's not really planning necessary. So I drew this very quickly. It's not best 2D animation, but it gives you the correct idea. You can do this by using the pen tool right here. So let me open it for you. And then you can add a color or choose a color. And you can just draw. And when you draw something like this, so fire, then you will see there's like a blue triangle appearing in the time slider. And then you can do the same thing, just a few frames along the way, and the moment you start drawing, as you can see, it will just play, and then you can create something very basic like this. So I Control Z those. So next up we have solid drawing. Let me hide, well, we can actually keep using them. So show only the polygons. Solid drawing means we want to clearly see via the camera what's happening. Like right here, if you would close all lights, you can just see this, so it's pretty clear. In this angle, she's watching at something, but in certain angles, it might be a bit weird. Either she might be drinking a cup of tea, who knows, we don't know. So it's important that you make a clear drawing towards the camera. The solid drawing actually comes from the 2D animation principles, where you really have to draw clearly, but we can apply this principle into our 3D and saying like, hey, we need to think about how we present things towards camera so the viewer always knows what's happening, even when we have a dark color grade. So therefore the light is pretty useful. If you have no light in your scene, you can use this one. Everything turns black and you can check your pose, but still this pose is not really super clear of what's happening and it's pretty boring. So what you need to do is use the next principle with exaggeration, this one, and exaggerate the pose. So I did this right here, and now Michaela feels super focused on what she's seeing, and in this case she was looking at the fire, obviously. Right here, and now if you would turn the lights, now it's very clear she's looking at something, and it's very clear on a lot of angles. So here we almost have the same pose as previously, but in all the other angles it's still very clear. So that's really important to take away from this. is staging. So now our staging, can even open up a tool for this. I'm not really going to get into this, but it's important for a composition you work on 1/3. So you work on something. If this is your screen, you try to make something interesting that's happening around the intersections of the lines on the 1/3. So now we have our flame in this position and our character in this position. So we know Michele is looking towards here, right? So our focus as a viewer will be drawn to the flame. Sometimes you want something different, right? We want to know where Michele is looking, but maybe she's not the most important thing of this shot. Maybe there's something else going on which needs her attention or the attention of the viewer a bit better. For example, a dragon that's going to eat her. So then you would move your camera, and obviously she's on the edge. She's a bit on the edge of the frame, but in this case it doesn't really matter since we want to see the dragon surprise Michele. So yeah, that's staging for you. So let's hide the dragon again so we can continue. So something important that's happening here is the building of an arc. Arcs are something super important in animation because it's something that comes back all the time in real life. Everything moves in arcs. Like for example, a jump right here. If you would use a tool to visualize the movement, and show it in motion trail right here. Now it's a triangle, but if you would add more poses, we would try to figure out a way to get things moving in an arc. And then this is a good way to visualize where your character is moving. And why is this so important? Like I said, everything in life, or most things in life at least, move in arcs. It's even when you're walking with your arms behind you, it's not like they are moving in one direction. Now you're going to be hyper focused on this when you go for a walk, but actually they don't move in one direction, but they are actually doing an 8 the entire time. So it's going inwards, outwards, inwards, outwards, so outwards and back in again. So it's just like visualizing an 8 shape. So it's going in. Use another color. So the arm moves in, out, in again, and this is actually how your arm would move in real life, but obviously this is exaggerated. But if you are walking and be hyper focused on this without interfering with the natural path, this is the kind of shape you will get. Even when you're walking and you wave at someone, it's not gonna be like this, right? So let me just quickly edit for you. Okay, so you're not waving in this motion. Okay, so if you're waving, you're not doing this, right? Going from left to right, and then back again, and so on and so on and so on. this looks super weird, right? Even if we visualize this one. See, it's one line. That's not what's happening. So this is wrong, and this is something that we call working in IK. So as you probably have seen, I changed something here in the rig, IK arm 1 and 0. So IK is something we use when you want to lean on something, or you want really your hand to be the leading cause of an action. But let's remove this motion shell for now, and then go back to FK mode, so forward kinetics. And then if you would try to wave, I'll just set this up very quickly. You will notice this is already a lot more work to get this in the position. But it's not to worry, it's all normal. So if you would now like to wave at someone, I'm gonna be doing this very easy. And just to give you an idea, if you would wave from, let's say, right, okay, and then back, and then same thing over and over again. This already looks like a more correct movement to a wave, and if you would now put this controller in the visualization, you will notice that it's gonna be curved. So you can ignore this one, it's from other animations. But as you can see here, this movement is curved. So that's why it's important to use arcs. This is something you will look towards to all the time. So we're almost finished with our principles. There's just one more principle to go over, which is appeal. Appeal talks about, well, the charisma of your character and how beautiful it is for the audience. And I went a bit extreme, and Kitty now looks like this. So this is not really nice to look at if it's not on purpose, right? So if it fits in the style of your animation, yeah, go for it 100%. But this is clearly not the goal of our character. So when you're creating a character, of thinking about the style, thinking about an idea, make sure everything fits, right? So for example, this belt, this gun, the headset, the crossbow is all very realistic, and if you have a super weird styled Michele, this does not fit together. So to make it more appealing, you should go for one style and have like a board of styles, what's acceptable, what's not. It's like having a character Bible, some people will call it. Let's go back to our normal Michele. So what's also important about appeal is not only the looks, but also how nice things move. Like having character to the style of your animation. And that's something we can find again at our animation right here. I know it's again at a squash and stretch, but it's already more appealing to look at this ball instead of looking at this ball. So appealing is both visually and as in style, and visually, and as things move. So it's both how things move and how things look. That's what the principle appeal gives us. So these were the 12 principles in a nutshell. With all this information and how now you also know how to work in Maya, you can continue on to really animating. We're done with all the theory and that kind of stuff. Now it's really animating stuff. So next up is animating two balls. I know, not for a beginner, it's not always the most exciting thing to do, but it gives us time to learn. For example, here we learned between squat and stretch and appealing things. Well, in the next exercise we are going to animate two balls. One will have to feel like a bowling ball and the next one has to feel like a beach ball. The reason is so you learn how we can visualize the weight and the feeling of weight, and how both kind of characters, so the heavy and the not so and the light ball, how they bounce and rotate. And if you know how to do that, you also know how to use the curves, because a lot of bouncing ball animation is in the curve editor, like here. Bouncing balls are the best way to learn animation in the curve editor, in the graph editor I mean, and to learn about weights in a character. So that's next.